Hello guys, this is gonna be the first video lesson that I will prepare for you. So essentially what we're gonna do, we're gonna carry out where we were left off. So we were at conservation, we're gonna carry on from there. How these video lessons are gonna go through is that I'm gonna basically describe the lecture to you. I'm gonna talk, I'm gonna basically, like a normal lecture, I'm gonna explain the topics to you. Then your notes will be on the slides. So every slide you see should be on your notebooks. These are notes that I prepared for you. So you can pause the video anytime to write these down, and you can actually rewatch the video if you want. So let's start from conservation. We were left at practical conservation. So practical conservation involves two things. First, designation and maintenance of representative habitats as nature reserves. This is usually called in situ conservation. So this is when you actually designate an area of high importance to a species or some species, a couple of species, as a nature reserve, which means it is protected. Then that's how you carry out your conservation. So you protect the habitat to protect the species in there. Secondly, preservation of endangered species and genetic diversity through the maintenance of botanical and zoological gardens and the establishment of viable seed banks. So zoos. So let's carry on. Let's start from the beginning. Zoos. The main reason for zoos in the beginning of 14th, 13th century, they were just places that people put different animals just for the for the fun of it. So they didn't care about conservation. But as after the 18th century, 19th century, what happened was these zoos, these zoological gardens, now we call them, they become places for a type of conservation. So captive breeding programs essentially. So you captively bred endangered species in order to release them to the wild, or if that's not possible, you basically store them there. In case of plants, it is much easier. You can just create seed banks, store their seeds in cold, special environments, which will hold them for thousands of years. Then you basically conserve that species for thousands of years without actually having to create a garden. You just place the seed in a storage, stays there. You conserve the species. But this is ex situ conservation, so it's not on the site, which means. So carrying on, we have a case study in our books. It is called Why Conserve Rainforest Ecosystems. So essentially, when you are trying to do a conservation project, what you do, you get to get around different kinds of people, lawyers, economists, government specialists, and you actually create a statement why you should conserve that specific habitat or that specific species. Um, you will have a couple of reasons for this. For example, first one will be ecological reasons, economic reasons, aesthetic reasons, and ethical reasons. You will read more about this. You have to read more about this on the page 176 because I couldn't put everything on here, but it's on your notebooks. So these reasons, in essentially the titles are the same. The reasons are the title of the reasons are the same, name of the reasons, but reasons in on their own they are different. For example, conservation of a lake will be different from conservation of a rainforest. So it will have different economical reasons, different ecological reasons. There will be different species living there, therefore you will have different ecological reasons. Starting from ecological reasons, this can be, for example, it's a rainforest is a diverse ecosystem. It has really high biodiversity. So remember how did we measure biodiversity? So you can use biodiversity and say it's really high. You can use this as an ecological reason. You can say, okay, if we lose this ecosystem, then we will lose all this diversity. So it makes sense to conserve this habitat. Economic reasons, in case of rainforests, for example, There are a lot of resources for pharmaceuticals and other industries, cosmetic industries, to be actually gathered or researched in the rainforest ecosystems. So that can be an economic reason. If you lose this habitat, you will lose all these plants that could have been used to make a lot of money. This is a little bit different in different habitats. For example, let's say a lake. In a lake, lake is a storage of water. So in Cyprus, usually lakes or dams that are used to water our farming grounds. If we lose that habitat, we will lose that water. Therefore, we will lose a large amount of farming capability. So we will lose a lot of crops, which means a lot of money. Aesthetic reasons. These are usually associated with tourism or just well-being of the citizens. So if you have a rainforest that is looking beautiful, it's a fantastic scenery, then it's a benefit for your country, for your citizens' lifestyle, and also for the tourism. It can be many more like recreational facilities as well, for like camping, hunting maybe. So if you lose that habitat, you will lose all those facilities. Ethical reasons, lastly, is that every species on this planet have the same right as us to live. We don't have any right to actually destroy their habitat and take their lives from them. So that can be considered an ethical reason. But you should read more about on page 176. Okay? Carrying on. So, in situ conservation, natural reserves. What active management of nature reserves involve? Firstly, continuous monitoring of the reserves so that causes of changes are understood. Surveying. You need to survey. You need to basically monitor all the time to see if there are any changes and what causes the changes. Secondly, maintenance of effective boundaries and the limiting of unhelpful human interference. So basically laws that basically prevent you from going there, or maybe in Cyprus, if you know, Karpaz is a nature reserve, hunters are not allowed to hunt there. That can be a maintenance of the boundary. Thirdly, measure the the successful competition of life cycles of any endangered species for which the reserve is home, together with supportive conditions for vulnerable and rare species. So every organism have a life cycle to complete, to reproduce, to carry, basically pass on their genes. So if you maintain the habitats or niches that these organisms require, you can actually conserve the species. Fourthly, restocking and reintroduction of once common species from stocks produced by captive breeding programs of zoological and botanical gardens. So this is actually a combination of two kinds of practical conservation. It's reintroduction from captive breeding programs, and this is usually done a lot. You will see more examples of these in the extra videos I will send you, especially the second one. Carrying on, conservation by promotion of natural reserves. Natural reserves comprise carefully selected land set aside for restricted access and controlled use to allow the local maintenance of biodiversity. This is not a new idea. So this is actually it's not recent. This has been done for about 100 years. So designation of habitats to conserve its biodiversity. An incidental effect was to produce a sanctuary for wildlife. The actual dimension of an effective reserve vary with species size and lifestyles of the majority of the threatened species. There's a typo here. It is designed to protect and reserve. It's basically the main aim of natural reserves is to protect the biodiversity, protect the species there, living there, and reserve the habitat. So we're going quite short, but these are more. So how I can assess you from these topics is more commentary based. You're not gonna. It's not memorizing basically. What you need to do, you actually need to do a bit of research and learn more things to be able to answer different kinds of questions. I'm not gonna expect you to memorize something, but I'm gonna expect you to basically describe your ideas, know something about conservation and ecology in this topic. So your homework here will be to give an example to conservation facilities and projects by writing about one of them. So you're just going to write about one of them. This can be a conservation facility, or it can be a natural reserve. It can be a project for a captive breeding project program or whatever. And this is going to be a short essay about 300 words. So you will have 2 weeks to send this to me. I will tell you the exact date when I'm sending you this video, and it's gonna be about 300 words. Actually, I will send you the exact dates. I'm not sure about 1 week or 2 weeks to give you, but it's gonna be 300 words, so it's gonna be really short. And just gonna mention about one of them. So some hints for you, but so keep it local. If you keep it local, you will it will be more relevant to you. It will be more interesting, I think. But it can be about any any place on Earth, any type of conservation project or facility. Is your choice. But few hints I will give you. If you can Google these, you can find. I'm sure that you will find a lot of information about them. For example, Natura 2000 areas in Cyprus. Natura 2000 areas are actually not in our site. It's in Greek site, because Natura 2000 is done by the European nation. It's areas designated as conservation sites by the European nation. So we don't have them because we are not in the European Union, but the Greek side has. So you can check that out. We have the Karpaz SAPA, which is, as you know, the Karpaz Natural Reserve National Park. You have the Sea Turtles Project Protection Society in Northern Cyprus, which is in short spot. So if you Google these, I'm sure you will find a lot of information. Or you can just find your own project, or whatever it is. Maybe it's about pandas, whatever. I don't mind. So extra videos I will send you. One is more about conservation. The second one is a TED talk, which is, I think, very informative for you. It will give you a lot of ideas. So if you should watch these as well, and if you can maybe take notes. What do you think is important? Maybe you can use them to answer questions in an exam. Yeah, it's up to you. So thank you for listening, and talk to you again.